I'm Alec Baldwin, and you're listening to Marketing Trends, and the leads aren't weak.
"2020 will forever be remembered as the year of a once-in-a-century pandemic, but it should be recognized that it was also the year we all got reacquainted with our homes. From streaming a late-night movie in the living room to hopping on an early morning conference call in our home offices, or closets or spare bedrooms, in 2020, our homes were asked to do it all. Almost a year ago, David Marine, the CMO of Coldwell Banker, joined Marketing Trends to detail the company's ambitious rebranding strategy, and he's back now to update us on how it all worked out.
2020 is going to be the year of the rebrand, and what a great year it's going to be with all these plans. And as you know, 2020 happened to all of us. So things changed, but here we are a year later. And I can honestly tell you with a straight face that 2020 was actually the perfect year for Coldwell Banker to rebrand.
Things may have turned out well for Coldwell Banker, but it wasn't easy. Campaigns had to be altered, messaging and digital strategies were scrapped and shifted on a dime, and David was along for every step of the ride. On this episode of Marketing Trends, David tells us what it was like, and he details the wins and losses of 2020 for Coldwell Banker. Plus, he dives into how marketers can be agile in their digital efforts so that they too can rebrand or adjust when the time calls for it. Enjoy this episode. Marketing Trends Podcast is brought to you by Salesforce. We bring marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing.
Welcome to Marketing Trends. I'm Ian Faison, host of Marketing Trends, and today we are joined by recurring guest, David. How are you?
Doing well, Ian. How are you doing? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. Well, we said we'd have you back, after a year to check in on some of the cool stuff that you all are doing at Coldwell Banker, and here we are. So, for those of our listeners who maybe missed the first episode, can you kind of share where Coldwell Banker is at in terms of this rebrand that you all did and where you're at as CMO?
Yeah. So actually, I've been with Coldwell Banker for going on, it'll be 19 years in March, which is crazy. And as CMO, I got the chance to do the first rebrand in over 42 years for the brand. And we embarked on that in 2019 as kind of rolling it out in what we call the transparent rebrand, where we shared with our network the direction we were headed and tested it in real world scenarios before officially rolling it out at the start of 2020. And so 2020 is going to be the year of the rebrand, and what a great year it's going to be with all these plans. And as you know, 2020 kind of happened to all of us. So things changed, but here we are a year later. And I can honestly tell you with a straight face that 2020 was actually the perfect year for Coldwell Banker to rebrand. And I never would have thought that in March of last year, but really pleased with the success of what has happened over the course of the year and the way that the network, the industry, and our customer base has reacted to it.
Yeah. So, last time we talked a little bit about, this kind of idea that, a great brand is able to respond in real time. Obviously, everything, with housing change, the way that people, went to work change, all that stuff changed. So, a year removed from Project North Star, what has been the reaction? What has been, some takeaways, both positive and maybe some lessons learned here?
Yeah, when you're changing a brand that is so established, Coldwell Banker's been around for 114 years, and we've had the same logo for over 40 years. So implementing a change with something that is so familiar and established is a challenge. And I think I even went into it naively saying like, well, no, this is going to be a good thing and everyone's going to be excited about it. And there really was this need to bring people along with you, show them where you're going, show them the reasons why, what are the positive impacts. And we got to that point at the beginning of last year where all of a sudden the story that we were telling, the connection of the idea of the North Star, is being core to what Coldwell Banker has done since our inception in 1906 of leading our industry with all the industry firsts that I could share. Then all of a sudden it started to resonate with our network. And when it resonates there with your internal base, then all of a sudden it propels to the customers. And I talked a lot about authenticity in our message. And if it came out and it wasn't authentic to who we were already saying we are as a brand and how consumers were viewing us, then it would have fallen flat. But because that authenticity and that consistent leadership and being a trusted brand had already been laid for us, not only recent history, but for a long time, that made it that much better received. And we've done a ton of research around the rebrand, the effectiveness. We wanted to see, is it changing people's perception of the brand? Is it changing agents' perception? And so the two things that I'm really most excited about, one is that we have 99% awareness of our rebrand within the agent community, which is great. I told my team on December 30th of last year, like, can we get that to 100%? Like, who's the one person I need to call that doesn't know about this?
Yeah, exactly. They're not checking their phone.
That's right. And then I was told that statistically it can't be 100%. So whatever. So it's 99% awareness. But then even better than that is that the rebrand has shown a 60% increase in positive perception of the brand. So when they saw visuals of the rebrand, when they saw the implementation with messaging, it said, you know what, this actually makes me think more positively of Coldwell Banker. We already had a great perception, but it's just making that much more of a positive impact. And that's exactly what we wanted this rebrand to do.
Yeah, I'm curious. I wonder. Well, so first off, how do you kind of measure those things? What sort of things do you look at to measure that? Because that's great data.
Yeah, we've done a ton of research, both consumer as well as within the real estate industry. And so even in the fall of last year, we interviewed 600 agents outside of our brand, 600 inside of the brand, to say, what is your general perception of Coldwell Banker? Look at the different graphics from before the rebrand to now, different logo treatments. What is your change in opinion of us from that? And that's really where that 60% came from. Is people reacted to the way that our yard signs look, the office design, our messaging, all of that was showing, hey, you know what? This feels much fresher. It's still true to Coldwell Banker. I recognize that name. It's a trusted name in real estate. But you know what? It feels more current, more modern, a brand that I'd like to know more about with some of the reactions we got. But then it's also testing through what we're doing from consumer media perspective. And this is actually one of the greatest ways to see the effectiveness of it is we're seeing some of the similar creative executions that we had done in the past through social are seeing 3x click-through rate and responsiveness to our ads now that it has new design, the new messaging on it than it did even the year before. It's not that we're totally changing tactics and audience approach and all that. It's using those same things, but just seeing that much more of a reaction to it is showing that this message is resonating with that audience and people are reacting to it as well. So we're seeing proof points both on the softer side of things as well as the hard numbers with how our media is performing.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great case study on why to do that after 40 years to figure that out. Because when you talk about getting a higher percentage click-through rate, getting higher visibility, all of those things, I mean, that's just straight dollars spent, right? I mean, like, you can actually get the ROI of the rebrand.
I mean, that is return on ad spend at its finest. You want to be more efficient. You want to make sure that your messaging is connecting with that audience better. Those proof points actually show that. We also love to use a tool called Acemetrics, which is rate your advertising through a consumer panel on a whole bunch of different categories. And for years, I like to use that as the scoreboard for how our messaging is working with the real estate consumer. And we can compare it against competitors. And we saw that our campaign that we rolled out for the rebrand, which touted guiding you home for 114 years, was the highest rated ad in real estate last year, and which marks the 9th straight year that we've had the most effective advertising in the industry. And I'm just not talking about normal competitors that are other brokerages, but even real estate aggregators and popular sites that people visit. We're outperforming all of them. And we're outperforming them with the target markets that we want to as well. So females with higher household income are rating the ads highest and are the most connected with that messaging. Also, minority groups rate it higher than non-minority groups. And so those are all growth areas that we see. And using the rebrand message and this idea of guiding people home was connecting with people even in the midst of a pandemic when we were already home most of the time. And I think that speaks to the idea that we've been true to this message for quite some time in understanding the softer side of home ownership as well as the rational side. And this idea of being the North Star and being that guide is something that people connect with. And it's basically feels like an authentic story.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like if you were to have the like REI is going to run like an alternate campaign that's like guiding you anywhere from home, right? Because it's like, but I think it speaks to something that's, been such a huge trend of the past year, which is like everybody looking at the four walls that they live in and saying, are these the ones that I want to spend the next year in?
Yeah.
So there is some of that where it's like, I think that more than ever, people are using apps to look at, ways to redesign their homes. People are looking at remodels. People are looking at, anyway, bump outs and all those things. And they're looking for new places to live because they're like, hey, I can't be stuck for another year without an office or, whatever it is.
Oh, 2020 was the year of home, and it may actually start the decade of home as we move here, which pun intended, and become more entrenched in what our homes can do. And tons of people were assessing their lives. They're like, I bought this house, or I'm living in this apartment, or I'm renting this place because of work proximity, or being close to the proximity to all these different things. And now all of a sudden, I'm reassessing, is that the long-term need that I have? Do I want to be in this specific place, or can I look at other opportunities? Can I move further away from work because now I'm working from home either 100% of the time or even just a fraction of the time? That travel isn't as important as it was once before. I speak from personal experience. I'm standing in a room right now, which is now my home office, which is not an office. It's actually the living room. But as we were all home, and my wife's like, you know what, we should really do something with that living room. Now that you've put up a desk in that back corner there, let's update it. And so people appreciating what their homes have done for them for years, but also what can it do for me in the future was something that we totally saw in 2020. But then there's also this idea that home is more than just the four walls. It is a neighborhood. It is a community. It is where we want to keep our loved ones safe. And so the idea that while we were in our domiciles, the home of family and friends and experiences that we often associate with where we live was something that we grew a greater appreciation for because of that separation that we had. I mean, home is the only place that you adorn with pictures of people that you love and that are constant reminders. And so it is that special place. I think more people than ever are assessing, hey, we want this place that we call home to be special. So let's go find a place that has the things that we want and need that can make it just that.
Well, I have in my fighter jet, I have a photo of my wife, just like they do in the movies. So I mean, I adorn that, but
that's good.
Maybe I'll need to get a fighter jet. So where did you put this campaign? Where did you put the Guiding You Home campaign? What were some of the channels that you evaluated and ended up going with?
Well, we were planning to launch it on March Madness last year, which we actually released it online, put out the press release the week before the tournament started, and we were all set for that big rollout. And then obviously they canceled March Madness, and basically all of sports canceled everything for most of the year. So we had to really reassess what were we going to do, which was nerve-wracking. But I'll tell you what, it forced me and my team to say, okay, let's rethink what we're doing. How can we still make an impact, even though this vehicle which we were going to lean on has been taken away from us? And I really give credit to my team and agency partners. And it showed, especially, even though we weren't physically around each other, the people that you have around you as a marketer are as critical to any ROI and media report that you can get, because they will really be there to help you when things get a little bit turned upside down, which they did. So we actually made some tweaks to our campaign. Instead of ending with only one real estate brand has been guiding you home for 114 years, we decided to change it to a message to feature what we call the hometown heroes, the nurses and airline pilots and truck drivers who were so critical during last year. And we ended our end card with home, it's never been more important. Stay home, stay healthy. And we saw that ad ended up being the highest rated ad in real estate. We looked at, then when we reassessed some budgetary options, we looked at digital and streaming as being a core place for us to get our message out there because of the increase in streaming. So we went across Hulu. And we also looked at, what are the marquee opportunities that exist in 2020 that ordinarily wouldn't exist. And so NBA playoffs in the summer and fall is a unique opportunity. And as we saw the market start to come back and we saw signs of like, hey, you know what, this Q3, Q4 could really be massive in real estate. Let's get our messaging out there. So we went in with the NBA playoffs and partnered with them, and their target market was very much in line with the real estate buyer and seller. And that works great. And we actually saw, based on our spend, doubling the amount of ad exposure that we had originally expected. So it wasn't planned this way. There were cuts and changes along the way, but it really worked out to our benefit.
I want to dive in on Hulu for a second because I pay for Hulu. I think Hulu's great, to be fully honest. I just think it's awesome.
Oh, it is.
But I think as an advertiser, I haven't heard a ton of people, on this show that have used it. But I find the ad units extremely compelling. And I know it's still really early days. And I know that, there's obviously an ad-free option on Hulu and those sort of things. So, you could, potentially price yourself out of, I guess, certain demos or something like that. But I'm just curious, like, why were you excited about Hulu and what did that look like?
Yeah, I think I read a stat somewhere that about of cord cutters or self-identified cord cutters, that basically half of them have a Hulu subscription. So we know that the cord cutting is a massive trend across the media landscape, but even those who haven't cut the cord still have Hulu subscriptions or are viewers because they want that on demand, or they're using it through their Apple TVs or Roku's or whatever.
That's crazy. Wait, half? Wow, that's a great stat.
Yeah, half. I think it's from Hulu. It's probably where I got it from, but
that's right. Yeah, but still, I mean, but that's, when you talk about like, grabbing an audience, I mean, like that's a freaking massively targeted. I mean, as targeted as you can get for this type of spend, I mean, right?
Oh, and it's not getting smaller either, right? So we know that number is going to grow. And as a brand, Hulu is really offering a unique media outlet, because a lot of the other streaming services either haven't figured out how to make an ad platform at it, or are like, we're going to go the subscription route and then figure that out down the road. So Hulu's been in the game for a while now. So I think that their ad offering feels like a plug for Hulu. But
no, it's all good. No, this is great. I mean, this is like I said, we've never really talked about it a bunch on the show, and like I'm so fascinated. Maybe we need to get Hulu on the show too, because and the reason why I'm so interested in this, like back a handful of years ago, as I was like charting the media landscape, and you just look at like extremely high quality television with a digital footprint that allows ads, and it's like obviously Netflix doesn't, and HBO Max doesn't, and or HBO whatever it was then, but HBO Go, and
no, it's HBO Max. You're right. They changed the name 10 times, but yes, you're right.
Yeah. Well, now, yeah, exactly. Well, so and then you just look at that and you're like, well, Hulu like was kind of the only show in town for like a couple years where it was like, hey, if you want to access, this, if, and like you said, if half of cord cutters have Hulu and they're actually good at serving that stuff, I just think it's a fascinating. I mean,
it is.
I don't know. For my money, I'd rather throw that than like, a broadcast TV event that's not interesting.
Yeah, and their targeting options and their audience profiling is good. So it gives you that digital offering that you expect from buying a targeted buy in a vehicle in which you can tell a long form story, if you will. And whether it's through exclusive kind of sponsorship and options of like, hey, watch this ad and you get to watch the rest of your show commercial free, like that is prime location where people are going to be paying attention. The ads are not skippable either, so you've got that engaged viewer, and they've really enhanced their content offering too. So their programming is continuing to show growth with some great new shows.
Yeah. So did you use the choose an ad option or some of those things? I haven't seen it. I see Corona a lot.
Well, they're probably target marketing is what they're doing.
I do like a good Corona.
So we're actually looking at that in through both 20 and 21. We're continuing with our Hulu sponsorship. And they've got some different offerings, whether it's called Hot on Hulu, as well as just kind of like, I'll call it run of site for lack of a better term, type of advertising options based on our audience. So yeah, there's a lot of great options on display. And we see streaming as a necessary way to partner with a larger media plan. So we like to focus on marquee tentpole events to get that mass audience reach, like a March Madness, where we know people are tuning in live because they want to see what's going on, and then using Hulu as an offset to fill in the gaps on, all right, where's the audience profiles that we're missing or that we can complement so that we can get some extra recurrence of our messaging at a lower cost and a more efficient way than you would see in broadcast.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that. I mean, well, I forget what, and I don't know if you're talking about this, but there was that show Marvel Runaways that I think was sponsored by Lyft, or they had product placement in like every episode and stuff like that. And I remember seeing that. I think I wrote an article about it a handful of years ago, or maybe we talked about it on Marketing Trends. I can't remember, but I was just like, man, this is like somewhere Steven Spielberg is like smiling and nodding at like look at this. Product placement in a TV show that's like productized. It's like, wow, that's like truly innovative stuff, I think.
Oh yeah.
And maybe listeners don't love it, but I think that, I mean, I definitely didn't care. I take a Lyft. So the fact that the people in the show were taking a Lyft, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
And it goes back to this idea of authenticity too. So where it's authentic and it makes sense and doesn't take away from the storyline, and it's real and it's complementary, that's where it's perfect. Like as a sports fan, I always hated when you watch shows and movies and they had to get like the generic sports team. I'm like, come on, like
totally
pay the extra bucks, let's make it real. That'll make the story better. And that's where it makes sense. It's when they're driving in a car and then they're like, hey, this is a new car. Oh yeah, it's my new blah, blah, blah. Like that doesn't feel authentic and it's kind of being forced. But I think that viewers as well as brands benefit when it's a seamless integration and it really makes sense.
Yeah, totally. That's really fascinating. So do you target both, or do you target all sides of the market when you do those big type of campaigns? Like, are you doing like just brand campaigns? Are you doing people to buy and sell homes? Are you talking about agencies? And then we'll get into global luxury here in a little bit. But as you're setting up those type of things, what are you looking at?
Yeah, we have different segmentations that we're targeting, whether it's through media or even just from our general marketing and product creation. We have our first-time home buyer segment. What do they look like using demographic information as well as what has their activity online been to be able to target against them. We have we'll call them a second-time seller, which is really some of our sweet spots, people who've been through the process before, maybe looking for a move-up type of property. And then, yes, targeting, whether it's our own agents or in the industry, is also a big thing for us because we're constantly recruiting agents who are wanting to join Coldwell Banker so we can increase our market share. So we're looking at all those things, whether it's on-demand, social targeting, that all plays a role. And there's a handy-dandy Venn diagram that's part of our media deck that showcases where those all fit. And we can have the broad reach on a March Madness and then highly targeted across social and dynamic ads on search, to then making sure that we're hitting some of those specialized segments across Hulu and YouTube and Facebook.
So you mentioned NBA playoffs as like a tentpole kind of strategy, something that obviously we were all stuck in our homes and getting sports back was huge. But what was it like working, with the NBA doing that sort of stuff? Was this something that you'd done in the past? I know normally you think about March Madness. So I'm just curious how that went.
Yeah, we actually did the buy through Turner, was a great partner. And because sports was just coming back and a lot of advertisers last year just kind of shut down and weren't wanting to spend anything, they're really great partners. And there was a lot of flexibility with what we wanted to do, the value that we were getting, the added value bonuses that were part of it. And it was one of those rare moments in time when, you wouldn't have ordinarily thought of it, but then all of a sudden it opened up the door like, hey, well, this is a big game in town. Let's go check it out. And we did some audience profiling and it did fit not only the buyer or seller, but the index of NBA viewers against those who work for a real estate company was really high. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone report that on an index chart before. So it made sense, and we got a lot of value for it. I think we basically doubled our exposure last year because of that, and just that there was a lot of demand for wanting to watch live sports, and there was a lot of flexibility with what we could do from a spend.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you personally involved in those negotiations, like as the CMO? I mean, are you the one sitting at the table with Turner and things like that, or is that something that folks on your team handle?
I have a great team that handles a lot of that, and agency partners that have done it. But yeah, typically they're coming back saying, here's the offering, here's what we can do. And what I love and what we like to do with any partner is want to make sure that's aligned from our brand perspective, like who's the audience, even the messaging that is being brought forth, that really makes sense for us. I'm less interested in buying media than I am finding the right partner.
Totally.
And right vehicle for our brands to work together. It's worked well in the past, and I think that this worked in lieu of March Madness, which has been a great partnership for us in the past. But I think that for this moment in time, the NBA really met the needs that we had, and it was a good experience, and we got a ton of value out of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's always, especially with finding the right partnerships, it's something that I always am curious how much, different CMOs have their kind of like, well, I just am a basketball fan, so I want to sponsor the NBA, or like, I'm a huge football fan, so I want to sponsor, college football, or I want a jersey patch or whatever. We had a great episode recently talking about Lending Tree and their jersey patch on the Charlotte Hornets, which like, I just love stuff like that. I mean, I just think it's like, because you can get so creative with it and you can work on, like you said, tentpole messaging, tentpole, broad reach platform, and then all of the other kind of like speedboats that are around that go everywhere else. And you've also partnered with some really cool organizations in St. Jude Children's Hospital and others.
Yeah.
How do you look at those type of partnerships?
Yeah, it really comes down to how does it connect with our brand from a large partnership standpoint. So recently we announced a partnership with James Edition for our global luxury listings, and the standard of which we hold the global luxury program and our luxury agents, it makes the perfect fit. I mean, Coldwell Banker sells more $1 million homes than any other real estate brand. And James Edition's clientele and audience fits perfectly with our target for the luxury home buyer and seller.
Oh, $1 million home.
Yeah.
The 2-1 in Oakland, California.
That's right. But even beyond that, like St. Jude's is a fantastic example. So they're like, you're a real estate brand. Why St. Jude? And when they first approached us about like, hey, we were actually one of my coworkers, Tori Keshinjay, who oversees our media, she gave a presentation at an event a couple of years ago, and someone from St. Jude's was there. They came up to her and they're like, your story is really interesting. I think it connect with ours. And when we got to talking with them, the light went on for me. It's like, wow, we're in the business of home. We want to get people into a home. We've been all about home, the emotional and rational side for 114 years. St. Jude's is all about getting people home too. They want to get those kids healthy and back home and back to a normal life and create those opportunities as quickly as they possibly can. And I looked at that as like, wow, this makes sense. The mission of both of our organizations is to get people home. And they just do such amazing work. And so we created a partnership whereby our agents can sign up to be part of the CB Support St. Jude program. And then a donation is made for every home sold during whatever period of time our agent wants to dictate, month, 6 months, full year, whatever it might be, and allows them access to some of the marketing materials to showcase that property as being a Support St. Jude's home. And so we're really excited about that partnership. We have a goal for making donations for St. Jude's for the full year, and I want to not only exceed that, I want to crush that goal and help out those kids there. But it's a fantastic organization, and those are the type of partnerships that are more than just slapping a logo on something. It really speaks to the core of what we do.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that it's something that it's tangential, but it meets, how you think about things. It's not just related to, buying and selling a home. That, it's about purpose and finding those things.
Yeah.
So obviously tons of different partnerships, lots of different kind of efforts in the past year. What does it look like for 2021? What's the strategy? What are some changes? What else is on the horizon?
Yeah, 2020 has taught me a lot. As a person, as a CMO, as a marketer, and our team. And I really feel like it helped set the stage for what will be, I think, a great year in 21. I think we found the need for our team and our partners on how can we be more nimble, more scrappy in what we're doing, whether it's from a media investment standpoint, whether it's from the day-to-day marketing aspects of it, and really stripping things down and getting back to the core of what we do and making sure our message is consistent and authentic out there. And the rebrand has really set the stage for that as well. It allows us to kind of hit the reset button and say like, all right, all that old stuff is now gone. We've got a fresh new palette, and let's be consistent with how we're approaching this from a design, from a messaging standpoint, and so on. So I think the stage is set for a really great 21. I'm excited that all signs point to March Madness being back. It's going to be a little bubble in Indianapolis. So we're going to renew that partnership and be back on that to roll out our campaign there again. So I'm looking forward to that. And then seeing some of the flexibilities and the improvements over what we learned last year on Hulu, on social, from a dynamic ad standpoint, that we can take those learnings as well as the enhanced effectiveness of our messaging and our design that we're seeing through our ad units, and really making that the value of our marketing dollar go further in 21.
Follow-up question on the Hulu stuff that I was just thinking about.
Yeah.
As you're looking at, like opportunities in the future, do you like watch TV and watch certain shows and then think like, wow, thematically, we would be a great fit? How can we figure out something there? Because, I'm always so curious about, the old model of time slots and this kind of standard programming for TV and how that's bought and sold versus, these new types of, dynamic insertion and different sorts of partnerships with apps where, it's going to get better and better and better, and we're going to be more creative. I'm curious if you see those type of shows and you're like, that's where I want Coldwell Banker to be, is, right at, whatever, flip or flop or something like that. I don't know.
Yes, all the time. I'm an avid TV watcher. I've binged my fair share of shows over the past few months. But yeah, that is absolutely something that crosses my mind. And I remember years ago thinking of like, hey, I wish someone would come up with, and so this is copyrighted David Marine. Anybody steals this idea and runs with it, just send me a royalty check. But the closed captioning, like that feels like that is content that is not being mined right now.
I love it.
And can someone read the closed captioning, and when keywords or phrases come up, that triggers, you know what? Let's throw a Coldwell Banker ad up in the next commercial break to make that association. But yeah, so let me know if you get any interest in that concept. But yeah, from even just looking at the landscape, whether it's streaming services or linear TV, where are those partnerships the right fit? I've even thought about, and my team will laugh when they hear this, is a couple years ago, I pitched the idea of, should the Coldwell Banker origin story be its own TV show? Because it's really a compelling thing.
Totally.
About a guy who started a real estate company, he's a college dropout, earthquake captain, sees shady business going on in his hometown of San Francisco and decides to set up his own business. And what's the kind of like things he had to get through, and who didn't like that he was setting up a shop based on integrity and doing what's right. So that's something that's sitting in the corner here, and maybe when the timing is right. But yeah, I think you got to find out where those not only media opportunities just from a buy standpoint, but the partnerships that really make sense for your brand to connect with. And the easy thing for real estate companies like, oh, well, just go on HGTV, go on DIY. But they're very saturated markets, and you'll find us there.
Oh, totally.
But looking for where is that new ground where you can really stand out and it makes sense, and you're doing something that no one else is doing.
Yeah. So and that's kind of why I asked the question, where it's like, when you see, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like whatever, Marvel's Runaways, for example, like that show, I'm sure, Lyft, when they were looking at that partnership, was like, it's going to be a young audience. It's geared towards, that demographic of probably people between the age of whatever, 12 and 20, maybe, I don't know. And we want those people to be taking lifts, and that's a good fit. But again, it's not like, a one-to-one thing. Whereas like, if you were to see Marvel Runaways, where you're like, well, there's probably a lot of, parents that are watching this show with their kids that want to watch, a Marvel show that are, sick of seeing the Rugrats running around in, 800 square feet and need to move or something like that. But because that's where you get like the tangential nature of marketing, where you really see, crossover audiences and win-wins, rather than doing the thing like, okay, everybody's going to be where Flip or Flop is because, of course they are, because that's the obvious choice. That's the easy choice as a marketer. Yeah.
And it's funny you brought up Marvel Runaways. So we actually did a partnership a couple of years ago with one of the X-Men films.
Oh, really?
And I remember, with X-Men Apocalypse. And I remember getting the call from someone at 20th Century Fox who was like, hey, would you be interested in a partnership in this film? And the first thought in my mind is, how am I going to explain this to my superiors? But what I saw with it was not like, hey, this from an audience profile fits our bill perfectly. It was, this is a unexpected area for us to move into that has a broad appeal. But you know what? There's a piece in this that I think can really connect back to the core of what we do. And the idea was that 70% of the movie occurred within the X-Men mansion. And that is one of the most signature homes in film lore. And there was a lot of fertile ground there.
Totally.
So it was like, what if we could list the X mansion? What if we could, give a tour of it and we could use some footage from it and create an actual page for it on our site and with an agent, all that kind of stuff. And I thought that there was a lot of opportunity there. And one of the great things with being a part of Coldwell Banker is every step of the way, the leadership has been willing to take risks, to step out and try something new. And they were like, yep, let's go with it. Let's try it out. And it turned out to be one of the single biggest public relations and social campaigns that I've ever been a part of. When at its core, you would have looked at it and been like, why is a real estate brand, being part of a comic book movie? But then all of a sudden the network got excited about it and it created this really momentum. So looking for those opportunities, and they're few and far between, but when you find the right one that makes sense, a lot of times it's not because, yes, this is the perfect fit, but you know what? It's worth taking a chance and stepping out to make something different so that you're being noticed versus just fitting in with expectations.
I didn't know you did that. That's really cool. I want to go check this out.
I'll send you some videos afterwards. Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, that's a really cool campaign. And that's a good segue into global luxury. And you mentioned it a little bit, but so how has this, this part of the brand changed? Yeah, global luxury, the rebrand of global luxury I thought was going to be a tough one because we rebranded the core brand, the core offering, and that kind of we sold people on that. And then we knew going into 2020 that we wanted to align the global luxury program with the core branding because it would just give a lift across all aspects of our business, the luxury home buyers, the main market buyers, and we need to do that. However, the global luxury audience of agents is very discerning, if you will. Totally. About what they want to have to be associated with their name and their clientele. So one of the great things we brought in top agents and teams internationally as well as domestically to be part of the process, to go through different iterations, get their feedback, what they liked, what they didn't like. And where we landed, I could not have predicted nor written a better script. That we had literally the number one agent in the company, Jade Mills, out of Beverly Hills, California, who on a call when reviewing the design says, this is better than anything we've ever had before. That's awesome. And so I was like, somebody recording this Zoom meeting because I need this. I'm going to play this on a loop. And we released it as part of our virtual Gen Blue in September. And the response to it was fantastic. And so having gone through the rebrand and like the initial rebrand of like, oh, I don't know, should we do this or not? Can we just stay with what we had? To then see this be rolled out with such great acceptance and adoption was truly incredible. So we're excited for 21 rolling this out on a larger scale. We have some media plans and partnerships in the works that we're hoping to make a big splash in this and continue, the Coldwell Banker dominance in the luxury space. Yeah, and our listeners, you can just go to coldwellbankerluxury.com to check it out. I've been, it's great browsing the houses in the Bay Area, and like I said, you can see the $5 and $10 million houses, and then the houses in Oakland and San Francisco that are a nice little 3.2 for 1.6. Oh, and if you want to dream, just go to our Instagram handle at Coldwell Banker.
It's all luxury listings all the time. And you'll just be like, yes, I need this place. I just need 45 of my friends to all pitch in, $500,000 and we can buy it.
Yeah, seriously. Well, before we get to our lightning round, anything else? Anything else that's coming up or that you're excited about?
I'm really excited about the first 2 quarters of the year from a real estate perspective. Great momentum. Q4 was just, seeing the activity and the interest around real estate has really given us momentum as a brand, as a company heading into 21. And I'm excited to continue to see this rebrand be adopted by our network across the globe. I'm getting pictures sent from like, hey, here's the North Star on top of a mountain in Colorado outside of Vail. And here it is in Italy. And just to see this type of adoption excitement around how our network is adopting it, and then they're using it as a way to separate themselves in their local markets, has really been an incredible experience. And I couldn't give enough credit to my team who has done all this amazing rollout, seen these fantastic numbers and return on investments, all while doing it in the middle of a pandemic, balancing work and life. And so it's really a testament to what's been done.
Awesome. I'm excited too. It's going to be, I think, pretty big bounce back here. Okay, let's get to our lightning round questions. You know these, so we're going to have to mix them up here.
Okay.
But they're still fast and easy. Don't worry. Just like marketing with Salesforce, you can go to salesforce.com/marketing to learn more about marketing on the world's #1 CRM. That is Salesforce. Put your customer at the center of every interaction. Go to salesforce.com/marketing to learn more. Lightning round questions. David, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
What is your prediction for the Mets record in 2021?
Oh, I'm going to go conservative and say 92 wins.
92 wins. All right. Go team. Favorite offseason acquisition?
Oh, Lindor, for sure. Best shortstop in baseball.
If you could interview one guest on this podcast, or really any podcast, who would your guest be?
J.J. Abrams. I want to get the skinny on what really happened with the Rise of Skywalker storyline and set, and then get to the bottom of that.
The second and third movies are literally different movies. It's insane.
Oh, they are. It's crazy.
Yeah. I love the second movie. I love the direction. Honestly, I love them all. I don't care that much, but I definitely wish that they had kind of went in the J.J. Abrams direction. I
do too. I've grown to appreciate The Last Jedi. Didn't like it initially, but I'm a big J.J. Abrams fan to begin with. So I know that there's something behind all of this, and he should have been given the leeway to do his own story. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was like pretty obvious that they just kind of like backtracked a lot of his stuff. Oh yeah. I agree. I mean, it's, I like, and again, like, movies like that, I just, I think that like with Disney properties too, you just have, especially with Star Wars, because it's like the biggest franchise ever. I think they just, they get over their skis a little bit and how much story they want to tell in a certain amount of time. Oh yeah. And then it's like, you go look at like Mandalorian and you're just like, this is why this is like the best show on TV, is because it's so